Coming up, President Yoon sat down with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince to mark the 60th year of diplomatic ties. The Saudi prince also met with a number of business leaders in South Korea. President Yoon also welcomed the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. The two agreed to upgrade ties to a strategic partnership. We explain what this means. Plus, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida met in person for the first time. We have what the two discussed and what it means. Good morning. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. Our top story this morning, Saudi's Crown Prince visited Seoul for the first time in 3 years to mark 60 years of diplomatic ties. During a summit with President Yoon, the duo agreed to develop a new strategic partnership. Ji-young starts us off.
South Korea and Saudi Arabia have agreed to strengthen cooperation and build a new future-oriented strategic partnership. This was during Thursday's meeting at the presidential office between President Yoon Suk-yeol and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Crown Prince is visiting Seoul for the first time in 3 years, marking the two nations' 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations. President Yoon noted that Saudi Arabia is South Korea's biggest trading partner in the Middle East and is key to the country's economy and energy security.
양국의 관계가 또 새로운 단계로 도약할 적기라고 생각합니다. 양국 간 신성장 분야에 대한 투자, 또 네온과 같은 메가 프로젝트, 방산 수소 등 미래 에너지, 또 문화 관광 분야를 중심으로 한국과 사우디의 협력을 한층 더 확대하고 발전시켜 나가기를 기대합니다.
The Crown Prince said he looks forward to continued cooperation, particularly in energy, defense, and infrastructure, as part of achieving Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. He's also met with leaders of South Korea's major conglomerates, including Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong, SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won, Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Jung Eui-sun, and Hanwha Solutions Vice President Kim Dong-kwan. At the top of their agenda was likely potential business partnerships for the $500 billion development of the megacity Neom. On the occasion of the visit by the Crown Prince, Saudi Arabia signed deals to invest billions of dollars in South Korean companies for projects that include Neom. Saudi-based Ashark TV quoted the kingdom's investment minister on Thursday, saying that Saudi Arabia has signed investment deals with South Korean firms worth some $30 billion. Seoul's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy also said South Korean companies ranging from railways to chemicals and pharmaceuticals have signed around 26 memorandums of understanding with the kingdom's government and businesses. They include the Shaheen project worth some $7 billion to build high-quality producing petrochemical facilities in the South Korean city of Ulsan, and a deal worth nearly $2 billion with Hyundai Rotem to build a railway in the planned megacity Neom. Ji-young, Arirang News.
President Yoon also held a summit with the visiting Dutch Prime Minister during talks to upgrade ties to a strategic partnership for economic security and conventional security. A wide range of cooperation was addressed as well. Our Yoon Jung-min shares with us what was discussed.
South Korea and the Netherlands will elevate bilateral relations to a strategic partnership. That was the gist of Thursday's summit between South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Seoul in what was their second face-to-face since a sideline meeting at the NATO summit a few months ago. A range of cooperation was reaffirmed, centered on economic security, from chips, supply chains, clean energy, digital innovation, and artificial intelligence to nuclear power.
우리 두 정상은 경제가 안 보이고 안보가 경제인 시대에 양국 간 경제 안보 분야 파트너십이 무엇보다 중요하다는 데 공감하였습니다.
In line with this goal, Mr. Yoon and Mr. Rutte had a separate meeting with key business leaders in the semiconductor industry ahead of their one-on-one. Also addressed were security concerns over North Korea's unprecedented level of threats as the two leaders aim for the complete denuclearization of the regime and vow a strong joint international response in the event of the regime's seventh nuclear test.
As long as Pyongyang refuses to discuss complete and irreversible denuclearization, the international community must not release the pressure. So it remains essential that sanctions against the regime are implemented fully and effectively.
They also condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, calling for a rules-based international order while renewing their promise for humanitarian assistance for the war-torn nation. Noting the importance of bilateral consultations, the leaders saw eye-to-eye on elevating a working-level political consultation dialogue to a ministerial-level strategic dialogue between the two nations. Seoul plans to co-host the upcoming session in the Netherlands on responsible AI in the military domain. Since a wide range of areas for current and future cooperation were addressed between the two men, Korea and the Netherlands are now set to launch active consultative bodies to bring about concrete results. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Yoon called on Dutch chip equipment maker ASML to invest more in South Korea. Ahead of the summit, he sat with officials and businessmen from both countries to discuss ways to expand cooperation on semiconductors, renewable energy, and defense. Yoon highlighted how the opening of ASML's repair and training center in Hwasong can help improve competitiveness of the local chip industry. He emphasized the two countries could enhance stability of chip supply by building ASML's chip equipment manufacturing plants and R&D centers in South Korea. In response, the company's CEO Peter Benink said they are considering various opportunities in South Korea. North Korea fired a ballistic missile again. This came just hours after the regime warned of a stronger military response to the U.S. and its allies moving to strengthen defense ties over the weekend. For details, let's turn to we have our Beunji reporting.
At around 11 a.m. Thursday morning, North Korea fired a single short-range ballistic missile from its port city of Wonsan. This came 8 days after it tested a short-range ballistic missile last Wednesday. South Korea's military said the missile flew 240 kilometers at an altitude of around 47 kilometers at a speed of Mach 4. It reportedly hit an uninhabited small island in the East Sea called Alsam Island, a target that's typically used by North Korea to test missiles. Seoul's military confirmed that it actually held a missile defense drill with the U.S. earlier in the day and that it's still maintaining a strong defense readiness.
Right after North Korea fired a ballistic missile, we shared information on the situation with the U.S., and we reaffirmed a strong combined readiness by conducting a combined missile defense exercise today.
The Allies' Aegis-equipped destroyers were reportedly involved in Thursday's exercise. An official from the Joint Chiefs of Staff told reporters that this was something that was planned in advance and done before the missile launch. The official also said that this is an exercise that's been done before to bolster combined readiness, but did not provide further details. Just 2 hours prior to the launch, North Korea's foreign minister warned of more intense military responses should the U.S. continue strengthening its extended deterrence with its allies. In a statement released via North Korea's state-run news agency, Choi Sun-hee slammed the recent trilateral summit between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. The leaders of the three countries issued a joint statement vowing to bolster deterrence capabilities and had agreed to share warning data on North Korea's missiles in real time. Choi said the regime's fiercer response will be proportional to military activities the U.S. has been conducting around the Korean peninsula, saying Washington is taking a gamble it will regret. She added the reaction will come as a more severe, realistic, and inevitable threat to the U.S. and the countries following it. Beunji, Arirang News.
Following the launch of another short-range ballistic missile on Thursday, the Pentagon responded by saying North Korea continues to destabilize the region, according to Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Speaking to the press hours after the launch, Washington's commitment to Seoul and Tokyo remains strong. Singh had been asked if North Korea's missile launches might become a new normal in the region. North Korea has been firing missiles at an unprecedented pace this year. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida have reaffirmed their willingness to improve bilateral relations between their countries. The leaders met in person for the first time on Thursday. Our Kim Yo-sun has more.
The leaders of China and Japan have agreed to improve bilateral relations between their nations going forward. Their first in-person meeting came Thursday in Bangkok, Thailand, on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. During the 45-minute-long encounter, the two reaffirmed they would reopen dialogue across all channels.
During today's meeting, towards building constructive and stable relations between the two countries, we agreed to continue to communicate closely at all levels, including at the leadership level.
Kishida explained that he expressed his concerns over the situation in the East China Sea, as well as Beijing's military activities. However, he also stressed that a frank discussion was had regarding the overall direction of the bilateral relations between Asia's two largest economies. Despite tensions between the two Asian neighbors, she stressed the importance of the relationship between Beijing and Tokyo.
As close neighbours, China and Japan are both important countries in Asia and the world. We have many mutual interests and space for cooperation. The importance of relations between China and Japan has not changed and will not change.
During the meeting described by Kishida as being, quote, generally positive, the two countries agreed to expand the scope of cooperation to include green energy and culture. This was the first in-person top-level meeting between the leaders of China and Japan in about 3 years, at a time when Tokyo finds itself caught in the crossfire of escalating Washington-Beijing tensions. Their relations worsened in August as Beijing fired ballistic missiles into Tokyo's exclusive economic zone for the first time in response to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced that she will not seek re-election to a leadership role, ending a 2-decade streak as the top House Democrat. Thursday's announcement comes after the Democrats lost control of the House to the Republicans in the midterm elections. It also comes some 3 weeks after a violent assault on her husband at their home. Pelosi, however, says she will continue to represent her San Francisco district in the House. She's well known for shattering the glass ceiling to become the first woman to serve in the top position in the House of Representatives. Starting today, almost half of the intercity buses in Gyeonggi-do Province will no longer accept passengers when there are no seats left for safety reasons. This means those commuting to Seoul from cities in Gyeonggi-do will no longer be able to stand on the aisle of a packed bus. More than 1,000 buses operated by 14 companies will enforce the ban starting today. That's about 44% of the 2,500 intercity buses in Gyeonggi-do. The governor of Gyeonggi-do Province said there will be 20 additional buses running starting today and 68 more by early next year. The extra buses will accommodate the more than 2,000 commuters who are left standing during rush hours. The biggest event in the international football calendar, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, kicks off this coming Monday for fans in South Korea. The tournament takes place only every 4 years, and fans across the world will be tuning in to support their countries or favorite players. So what should fans be on the lookout for? Let's connect with Steve Han, a football writer from LA, to get some insights ahead of the tournament. Good afternoon.
Hello, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to see you here. This is the first World Cup to happen in the middle of the season for European footballers. What effect, if any, will this have on the teams?
You know, I think we're already starting to see the effects of that. You know, playing the World Cup in the middle of a European season, it pretty much forced the major leagues in Europe to play through an extremely congested schedule from August to early November. You know, for example, to give you a good example, the Korean midfielder Hwang In-bum, who's playing in Greece, he had to play 6 games in about 2 weeks before he joined the Korean national team for the World Cup this week. And, you know, and also because there's only about a week of training camp for these teams before the tournament this time, there's less time for injured players to recover in time. The perfect example of that is Son Heung-min, who's recovering from his well-documented injury at the moment. And we just heard today also that Senegal Sadio Mane, who's one of the big stars in European football, he's been ruled out of the World Cup because of an injury. So yes, I do think the congested schedule is already making its impact.
Now, looking at the whole tournament, who is your pick for the player of the tournament? The World Cup has also often produced new prospects as well. Do you have anyone in mind that might go on to become a star from this World Cup?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of players that we can look at, but you can call me biased, I guess. But I'm gonna go with a Korean player this time, and I tip Hwang In-bum, the main midfielder for Korea, to be one of the standout players to watch. And now, are there players who are more talented than him around the world? Probably. But what's refreshing about him, Hwang In-bum, is that for a Korean footballer whose style of play is based on his skills on the ball, he has also, he also has this positional and tactical versatility to excel in all phases of the game. Possession phase, non-possession phase, and both attacking and defensive transition phases. So, Korea has had quite a few midfielders in the past with similar or even higher skill level on the ball in the past as well. But when it comes to a Korean midfielder who has the skills on the ball and the diligent work ethic off the ball, I think Hwang In-bum is probably just about the only player who can play to his strengths regardless of the team's overall system.
Right. I mean, I did want to be unbiased throughout this interview, and I try to keep the questions, World Cup overall. But now my last question to you is strictly, focused on South Korea. Do you see South Korea advancing from the group stages? The last time we played Portugal in the group stages, we beat them to go into the semifinal. So maybe that's a sign.
My head keeps telling me that this is going to be an extremely difficult World Cup for Korea, but that's not because this is a struggling team, just to be clear. In fact, I think this is quite possibly the strongest national team that Korea has had in over a decade. But, like I said, even then, Uruguay, Portugal, these are two world-class teams with squads that are strong enough to take themselves deep into this tournament. And even Ghana, when you look at the way they played in a friendly yesterday against Switzerland, Switzerland was one of the most impressive teams during European qualifying. But, Ghana beat them 2-0 in a friendly, which was a really impressive performance from them. So, again, my head keeps telling me that this is going to be a tough group for Korea. But at the same time, as Koreans, more than anybody else, we're well aware that, these World Cup games aren't really played on paper. And, also for the very first time, Korea is going into the World Cup with a team that's been managed under one head coach for 4 years for the very first time in history. So, my hope and my expectation is for Korea to make it past the group stages and to even pose a serious challenge to break into the quarterfinals. Because, I do firmly believe that this is a team that's strong enough to have that kind of ambition, even against the world's best teams.
Right, it's not played on paper, and that's why the World Cup is so interesting and exciting to watch, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for your insights, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley, standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning, Doyon.
Now let's start in the Gaza Strip, where at least 21 people have been killed and several injured in an apartment fire.
Well, that is right. According to local health officials, several children are among the 21 dead. Now, the fire broke out on Thursday evening local time in a building at the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip. Initial reports say the blaze started after birthday candles were lit. Large amounts of gasoline stored inside the building contributed to the spread and intensity of the fire. Now, some of the seriously injured are being allowed to receive treatment in Israel, which maintains a blockade on the Palestinian territory. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has also declared a national day of mourning. Turning over to the Netherlands, where a court has sentenced 3 people to life sentences over the shooting down of flight MH17. The court on Thursday found 2 Russians and a pro-Moscow Ukrainian separatist guilty of murder in absentia. Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile in in July 2014, killing 298 people, including almost 200 Dutch citizens. The plane was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur when it was downed over a separatist-controlled region of Ukraine. A fourth person accused was acquitted over a lack of evidence. Focusing on Starbucks now, as more than 2,000 of its U.S. employees engaged in a single-day strike. The strike took place at over 100 stores across the country on the annual Red Cup Day on Thursday. The day normally sees the coffee franchise hand out holiday-themed reusable Starbucks cups to customers with certain purchases. It's the busiest day on the calendar for Starbucks. Now, picketing employees said they are protesting the company's retaliation against unionized workers. Over the past year, more than 260 stores have voted to unionize, but Starbucks has not yet started negotiating contracts with most locations. And in our final story, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, is celebrating its 50th anniversary. UNESCO started in November in 1972 with the Convention for the Protection of the Cultural and Natural Heritage. It is marking its anniversary with a two-day international convention in the ancient Greek town of Delphi. Titled The Next 50, the convention is looking at the future of World Heritage. Among some of UNESCO's new goals is the desire to make its list of sites more representative by focusing its efforts on Africa. According to the director of the UNESCO World Heritage Center, only 9% of the world's recognized heritage sites come from the continent.
Hello, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. Mild late autumn weather is in the forecast with afternoon highs to hover 5 to 7 degrees higher than seasonal norms this afternoon in most parts. But it's a winter-like morning for many. So notice how wide the temperature gap is going to be in Daejeon today. it is so confusing to choose what to wear around this time. However, the south of Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-namdo provinces will have high levels of fine dust during the first half of the day, with a mix of that lingering dust and fog hanging in the air all day long today. The rest of the country, though, can expect sunny skies and sunshine that will boost highs to 17 degrees Celsius here in the capital, 19 degrees in Daegu and Daejeon this afternoon. Then rain is in the forecast on Saturday on Jeju Island. Elsewhere, we'll have more pleasant late autumn weather under bright skies. Then we will notice temperatures going down next week, but still above the norms the first half of the week. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week for our Monday's edition at the same time. Please stay with Arirang News, though, for more updates throughout the day. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.